Hey everybody, my name is Josh Riley. I'm with the SketchUp team, and today we're here to talk with Mike Brightman. He has a tool for SketchUp called Condoc Tools, an extension for SketchUp, and that's short for construction documents. And what he's created is a way to facilitate the creation of these types of documents, whether it's polished construction documents or design packets for architecture, but of course any other project that requires the creation of these types of documents could benefit from this type of tool. So Mike, in your own words, what kind of tool have you created?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to describe it is really SketchUp has this 3D world with these sets of rules with layers and styles and scenes, and we've just come up with a tool that really expedites and manages layers, styles, and scenes. Really makes it easy and predictable. So probably the Condoc tools, it's creating scenes that go into layout and create these drawings, but it's really making that process exponentially quicker and cleaner, and then also opening up the options of working within industry graphic standards like controlling line weights and having dynamic hatches. So if you move a wall, the walls move, the lines move in layout, and then the hatch moves as well. So yeah, really just an all-encompassing system for creating construction documents in SketchUp Pro.
Okay. Our viewers might be familiar with a video series we made with Nick Sonder recently. So how does what you've done differ from the workflow with Nick Sonder and how he uses SketchUp and layout?
So Nick's system, I've watched the videos and he does great work, and I love his drawings. It's really sharp. My impression is that it's more geared towards residential and also a little bit more heavier on the final style of the drawing. He has a very unique graphic style. What we're focused on is really an expandable system that's scalable for any size project, any type of project, whether it's a renovation scenario or new construction, and then really giving you this system and this set of tools where if you just organize the model the way that we show you, this will just work. Everything just drags and drops and clicks into place and creates these like beautiful either black and white construction documents or colored design packets. So it expedites both.
All right, sounds good. Let's jump in and see how it works.
Cool, let's do it. Okay, so for the first tool we'll look at is the perspective tool. So we have our Condoc toolbar here, and you've got the plan generator, the section tool, elevation tool, and our perspective tool. So one of the biggest challenges with mastering SketchUp and really leveraging it to the fullest is controlling layers, styles, and scenes. And so here you can see we've got all of our layers open, and in our default template we've got all of our utility scenes set up. So really right away, if you grab our template, which is free for download at condoctools.com, you get all of these layer states like all on, all off, interior, exterior. And if you just stick to our model organization system, this stuff just works. Then we've got site, that's our last layer state. Then you also have some other default utility scenes like design, so all of the settings are optimized for fast and efficient modeling, and some other around here to explore. But that's really what I mean by we offer an entire system with the layers and the scenes, and so everything is just set up to work as long as you stick within our model organization. So I'm going to go with all on, and typically if I were going to create a scene in SketchUp, there's a number of steps that I have to do. So first off, I would kind of navigate around and pick my view. Maybe I would go into my styles and let's grab one of our styles here, like a marker presentation with clean edges. And then I would go into my shadows dialog, and I turn on my shadows and make sure, usually I stick with somewhere around 80-20, seems to be a good result. And so this is the view that I like, but now I need to go into my layers and I need to turn off my 2D graphics, and then usually we turn off our background as well. Those are where we keep our CAD drawings and our sketches. So this is, we're outlining the process of using the native tools in SketchUp to produce a scene. So now we've got our, we've got our screen. It looks the way we want it to look. So when I click on this plus sign over here, that's going to take a snapshot of the settings that make my screen look like this. So I do that, and then I always like to move those down to the end. And then make sure that all of your properties to save are turned on, and then rename your scene, and I usually prefix with LO_perspective1 and hit enter to lock that in. So now I can always go back to design and get to that real snappy modeling. I can go exterior, interior, and whenever I want to get back to this scene, I can go to perspective 1, and it brings me back. All right, so that's the manual way of doing this. But what the Condoc tools does is it really drastically expedites the managing of layers, styles, and scenes. So I'm going to go back to design, and I'm going to trash that scene that we just created. And we're just going to kind of float around here, and if I want to add a perspective view right here, I activate my perspective tool and click once. And with that one click, it just did everything, all of those previous steps that we just went through. So it applied the style, turned on my shadows, adjusted the layers within our system to make this view look the way it does. So I can go back to design, and I can orbit around here and maybe grab another perspective view like that. Maybe take one from above, and we'll activate, do that. So now you've got perspective 1 and 2 and 3, and so we're counting these down the line. And so some of the new functionality in our latest release is that if you delete one of these scenes, it will renumber and recount for you. So I'll go back to design because that's the easiest place to kind of get around. And then let's just navigate ourselves into the building here. And so sometimes with SketchUp, the shadow settings, you want to change those for an interior view. So this perspective tool, if I hold control, the little guy jumps in the house there. So if I hold control and click, it adds my perspective 4, but now my shadow settings are optimized for an interior view. So that's where we kind of reverse the light over to 0, the dark to 100, and use sun for shading and set it to noon. Because otherwise, your shadows, your ceilings get really dark. So like, just kind of nice to have that jump start. Just hold that hotkey and add your interior perspectives. So let's hop back out for perspective 1 and just, let's save this model. So file, save as, desktop. I'm going to throw this in my temp folder and call this, we'll leave that alone. Okay, so that's the first step of the Condoc tools, is it's really, it's managing your layers, styles, and scenes in SketchUp. But then the other half of this is when you get into layout, and we've pre-built these viewports as scrapbooks. So let's hop over into layout.
So for those that are new to layout, let's talk a little bit about what scrapbooks are and how you've leveraged that for your tool here.
Yeah, so layout is basically the 2D paper space component of SketchUp. So if in SketchUp you build everything at a 1-to-1 real-world scale, if a wall is 10 feet tall, you build it 10 feet tall. And that's all 3D. And then when it comes into layout, we're going to put that SketchUp model on a piece of paper that's, say, 11 by 17, and then we're able to assign a scale to it and create our set. Now, scrapbooks are typically pre-built pieces of annotation, but what we've done is set up viewports, basically windows to your SketchUp model that are already optimized that you can just drag and drop. And so all of the linkage between like perspective 1 through 4 is already set up for you. So it becomes an exercise of just dragging and dropping rather than choosing, inserting a model and optimizing those settings.
Cool, yeah, let's check that out.
Cool. So under templates, I'm going to choose our kind of standard presentation style template. And so, we've got our logo and just some basic information there. And then here's our Condoc scrapbooks. So over here, you can see Condoc 2.0, we've got our perspective scrapbook. And so now I've got perspectives 1 through 4, and I can just drag those scrapbooks onto my work area, and it'll throw in that perspective 1. You got 2, 3, and 4. The other thing you can do is just grab from these dots in the middle. I know I want all 4 of those. So we'll just drag all 4 in at once. And then I'm just going to scale them about the center. So in layout, if I hold Shift and Alt, I can just kind of drop those down. And then I'll hold Alt to go scaling about the center and get those sized on my page.
Nice. So it's kind of the same thing you would do normally in layout, but it kind of speeds things up, a little more efficient for a process that anyone might go through to set this type of page up.
Exactly. Yeah. We went through the manual process previously, and in layout, that would be File, Insert. We'd navigate to our model and insert that viewport, choose the scene, whereas with this, everything's already linked up. So if we look at Document Setup, under References, we've got our presentation area here. We've got a placeholder file. It says relink this file. So the important thing is that this model is saved. So I'll just save that SketchUp model. And then I'm going to choose relink, and I'm going to navigate to my desktop temp. And here we've got our Condoc version 2 new construction. We'll choose open. So now each one of these perspectives 1, 2, 3, and 4 has a scene. So now it's going to look at that SketchUp model and drop those different scenes into these viewports.
Yeah, so for those that are new, these are viewports into the SketchUp model, so that it works really nicely together between SketchUp and layout.
And so we'll let that auto render there.
Can't help but notice your mouse over there.
The old Rat 7. Yeah, this is for several years I was doing nothing but production modeling, where I would just put my headphones on and basically just run SketchUp for 12 hours a day, doing nothing but building houses and 3D models, and it starts to wear on your hand. And so anyway, this one, it's got it's got these pinky slides, thumb and pinky slides, so that your hand isn't like clenching the mouse. It's got the onboard toolkit. You can pull your wrench out and adjust things, and it's got counterweights, and it's meant for gaming. So it's got like
Nice.
sniper mode, so you can dial up the mouse sensitivity. Plus, it looks cool.
It does. It's like a transformer.
Yeah, and nice easy clicks. If you're gonna do this full time, man, you gotta have the best. So, cool. So here you can see, we let layout auto render, and so the models dropped in. Here's our perspective views, and these are all just it's just a jump start. All of this stuff is very editable. You could move things around, you can change things, you can adjust your scenes in SketchUp. This is not a rigid system. It's editable. Like it's not intended to own your workflow. You can go and change things.
That's good. Yeah, I was curious about that, how someone might be able to leverage changes in the design, because of course, as you're working, you're going to have changes. So that's good that it's certainly customizable in that way.
Yeah. That's the end of the perspective tools. Let's hop back into SketchUp and take a look at some other tools on our toolbar. So the elevation and section tools really expedite, again, like all of the management of layers, styles, and scenes. So these are building on complexity. The perspective tool is free, and then now we're going to start talking about some of the pro features of the Condoc tools. So it's always good to go back to the design tab, because that's where you're going to be able to zip around real nice and easy. And so if I wanted to add an elevation to this this model and describe the building, what's going on, again, I'd have to go in there, and I would have to maybe I'd go into this level and align my view, set the camera to parallel projection, go into my styles, choose like a black and white line drawing style. A lot of steps that you just would need to go through in order to create that look. Well, that's what the Condoc tools does, is it really expedites all of those kind of native tools in SketchUp. So to add an elevation to the front of this, I click on the elevation tool, and I click on the front of the building. So there's elevation 1. Now you can see that this is set up with like a sketchy style, and so that's controlled through extensions, Condoc, settings. So one of the new features is the ability to either create design packets in these like sketchier, looser drawings that are in color, or you can switch to construction documents. So if I go back to design, I've got elevation 1, I'll just add elevation 2, and now they're coming through in black and white. And there's a few things going on here that maybe aren't desirable. So one of those would be...
Looks a little dark.
Yeah, it looks a little bit dark. And then we also have this tree on. So like we can turn off our floor layer, and that way all of our trees go away. And then we're going to go into our shadow settings, and like we don't want to show just a dark gray building. We want to get like some nice shadows casting to make this thing pop in 3D. So in my shadows dialog, I can just slide these guys around and catch this at morning or afternoon. Usually it seems like somewhere in August gets you the widest array.
So we don't care a lot about the date here and the time exactly. We just want to make it look nice for this elevation.
That's it. Yep, just making that elevation pop and kind of explain the three-dimensionality of it. So we've got this all set up, and whenever I'm talking about scenes or teaching how to manage scenes in SketchUp, I always say make your screen look the way you want it to look, and then you either click the plus sign on your scenes dialog to make a new snapshot, or I can just go up here and right click on this scene tab and choose update. So now elevation 2 is locked in. If I go to elevation 3, those are the settings over there, and then elevation 2, it retains those settings. Now, here's the thing about elevation 3 and 4 is that our trees are turned on in these elevations. So if I want to do kind of a mass update of these scenes, I could go back to elevation 2, go to my scenes dialog, and I'm going to select elevation 3, hold control, and select elevation 4, and click on update. Now when I click on update, the only property that I want to update is going to be my visible layers. That's really the only thing I'm messing with. So a good rule of thumb here is that properties to save are always all checked on, and you're never going to touch them again. Properties to update, those are you're going to uncheck some things and choose which properties you update across the board. If I updated my camera location, it would change all of my camera locations to be this elevation. So we're not going to do that. Just update visible layers.
That's an important point there. There's properties to save, and then what you just did there is a similar dialog box, but it's actually that update icon there. So yeah, it's a good.
That's it. Yeah, it can be a little confusing because they look the same, but just properties to save, check them all on, don't touch them again. So now our trees are turned off. Shadows look good here, and shadows look pretty good there. So I'm going to save this, and now before we go back into layout to continue building this set, let's look at our next tool, and that is the section tool. What I like to do is orbit around. I'll go to design, and that makes everything kind of quick and snappy for navigating the model. And I'll go to my section tool, and when I activate the section tool, I can hover on a surface, hold shift, and then click to place that. So you can see here we've got this black and white, this construction document style. We've added our scene section AA, and so now I can zoom in and we'll just leave that scene alone right now. But this style is controlled through extensions, condoc, settings, and that's where you're choosing whether you're going to create a design packet or construction document. So in this case, we're looking for those black and white line drawings. Okay, so now I'm going to orbit around again, and I'll just activate my section tool, hover on a surface, hold shift, and then click in the middle of that staircase. And now we're chopping through there. Now, an important thing to note here is that this is a jump start. So we're always pushing the idea that this is not to lock you in. It's not like you have to add a new style, or I'm sorry, add a new elevation every time or a new section every time. This can be edited. So what I would do is go to View Section Planes, and you can see here's my active section plane. So maybe I don't want to cut through the stairs, so I'm just going to scoot section BB back a bit, and maybe like right there is a nice section for that.
And you just use the move tool there to slide that section back.
That's it. Yeah, the section planes behave just like any other geometry in SketchUp. So that looks pretty good. So then, the visibility of a section plane is a property of a style. So you can see here that, by going to View Section Planes, I've kind of outdated my style. So I could either edit that or just go back here and choose View Section Planes and turn that off. So now we've got elevations 1 through 4. We've got section AA and section BB. I'm going to go to File, choose Save. And now I will hop back into layout, and we're going to do that same process where we're going to kind of drag and drop viewports and relink and continue to evolve this set. All right, so now back in layout, these are our perspectives. Let's add a sheet. So you can do that here with the plus sign. So some nice new auto text features, kind of renumbers my page for me. And while we're at it too, it's always good to save, and you can see this is the drawing title, so I'll save this. I'll throw this in my desktop temp, and I'm going to call this one Denver. I'll call it a row house. So now it's going to take my, my file name, drop it into my title block, kind of a nice new feature, newer feature. All right, so now scrapbooks. Back over here to our conduct scrapbooks. We were working on perspectives 1 through 4. So now we're going to go in here and let's set up our elevations. So now the elevations work a little bit different. You've got your options between scales and elevation numbers. So you've got elevations, 1 through 20, something like that. So you're kind of limitless on building a really complex set. So you pick your scale, and all of the line weights are optimized for that scale already. So all I need to do is, let's stick with, I think an 1/8 inch elevation will allow us to get everything on this page. Actually, so that's elevation 1 is going to be that color elevation. And then we'll just see what happens. I mean, sometimes it's easiest just to throw the cartoon set together, refresh, and then arrange on the page. So, so I think what I'll actually do is make elevation 1 a 1/4 inch, and maybe that'll be kind of a blown up color look to it. And then I'll go to elevation 2, and now these are going to be our black and white elevations. So we'll grab 1/8 inch there, and go to the next one, elevation 3, 1/8 inch, and then elevation 4.
This is a good chance to talk about what's happening behind the scenes here, because you're dragging things from the scrapbooks, and what you have in the layout area there are viewports. So what's happening between SketchUp and layout here, and can you describe a little bit more about what you're doing just by dragging and dropping these simple elements?
So this is like a very similar process to going File and choosing Insert and navigating to where I save that that new construction project, and I'll just insert that. So now this is actually when I insert that model, all it is a viewport to that model. So that's what we've got here. And essentially now this viewport, it's always best to link it to a scene. So here you've got your scenes. So then you can see we've got our perspectives 1 through 4, and this is a good opportunity to hop back into SketchUp and save. Always got to make sure you save. So
right, so layout now knows that, hey, the SketchUp file has been updated, so we need to do something about that.
Yep. So you would assign a specific, we'll say perspective 1 to this, and now it's going to jump to perspective 1, and that SketchUp scene is locked into that viewport. So that's what we're doing with these scrapbooks, is that when I select this one, this viewport is looking for elevation 1, and there's a placeholder SketchUp model. So the Conduct Tools is going to name everything for you, and then it's just going to, when you repath the file, the placeholder file, it's going to drop those correct scenes into the right place.
Great, so that SketchUp, or I'm sorry, the scrapbook element knows which scene it's looking for.
Exactly, and the scale, and each one also has line weights associated with it. So like this one is at a, this is at 1/4 inch, so you've got like a line weight associated with 1/4 inch. So this one is at 1/8 inch, so you've got a line weight for 0.3. So I kind of went through and looked at, as you scale things up, what line weights kind of scale up accordingly, and so we came up with just some default settings. Again, it's not that you can't go in there and edit it, just we've got a really good jump start on it.
Okay.
Cool, so I'll trash that one, and then let's look at our document setup.
And let's show where that is in case there's
sure.
a few questions about how you get to this box here.
All right, so File, Document Setup, References is where you're going to see any image or SketchUp model and text to that is linked to your layout document.
So layout's kind of peering into your file system here, and it knows where these things live, and it kind of gives you a bit of a dashboard or status update of what's happening with those linked files.
Exactly, yeah. It's telling us that like this new construction is out of date. And then we also have this placeholder file. So all of our Condoc files, all of our Condoc scrapbooks have a placeholder file, and they all say relink this file. And so all you need to know is relink this to that design model that we were working on. So we'll just do that. And now layout's going to auto render, so you're going to have elevations 1, 2, 3, and 4 all drop into place because that placeholder file was already looking for those scene names that Condoc created. Cool. All right, so now I can close this, And now you see that some of these viewports, they do need to be a little bit reworked, and that's just the nature of the game here. So we'll just stretch this down a bit, and we've got our auto render turned on. That's a really important setting to be aware of. Right now for this task, it is ideal to have auto render turned on, but if you really want to master that setting, because otherwise you could be telling the entire layout document to render all at once. So
yeah, so if you uncheck that box, for those that are curious, you then have the option to manually click on render. But in this case, we're leaving it checked, so it knows to render that automatically.
Yep. Cool. So then here's our design, more of a design packet style. So we'll stretch that out. Let that render. And this is a little bit heavier, it's a little bigger viewport. It's more raster heavy. So, it just takes a little bit more time. All right, so we'll just do that.
It's a good time to mention as well that over there to the right of that auto checkbox, you've got hybrid on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually working with raster and vector in this viewport.
Yep. So the reason we are using hybrid is, and hybrid is a little bit more of a heavier, like for this particular elevation, this one might even be more optimized as a raster, because it has that sketchy scene, it has shadows, and it has like JPEG textures. So if I switch that to raster, that should almost cut the render time for this in half, because right now it's trying to vectorize things that really aren't vectorizable, right?
Yeah.
So now the reason that we make these elevations as a hybrid is because in layout or in SketchUp in general, the shadows are raster, but the line work is vector.
Yeah.
So we're getting the best of both worlds. And when it comes to a clean presentation, that's going to be important.
Yeah, so we want those shadow elements to be in raster format, yeah.
Yep.
For those to show up.
Yep. If we were to switch to vector, they would just go away. It just can't represent as a vector. Cool. All right, so then you just kind of drag your cartoon set around. This guy will stretch out a little bit. All right, very good. Okay, so this is where you start deciding, what's the best way to make this thing happen. And I think maybe we'll just stick to these 3 elevations on one page. Get those kind of scooted around a bit. Maybe a good chance to talk about like a precise move in the layout would be, let's see, let me just get this viewport kind of knocked down the way I want it. So like if I want to match the ground plane, every time you select any entity in layout, you get this precise move grip. So I can take that grip and click and drag on the left side of it and snap it to a line. And then I can click and drag on the geometry and snap that to this other ground plane. So now I'm getting those things to line up. So I'll do that again over here. Click and drag and snap to this line. Click and drag to move it, snap to that line. There we go. All right, so now, and technically we would want this over here and this over here. I'm holding shift to constrain that axis to build this set. Cool. Okay, so now we've got our elevations in there, and maybe I'm just going to duplicate this page, and that way I can duplicate it, and then I can erase these guys and slide my enlarged elevation on here. And then let's drop a section on. So again, it's the Condoc Tools is really expediting this process of dragging and dropping viewports that are already pre-optimized. So I'll just go to my scrapbooks, go to my section scrapbooks. Okay, so here's our section AA scrapbook. Again, these are broken down by the section lettering that's been applied automatically in SketchUp, and then you choose your scale. So, it seemed to be that 1/8 inch scale was pretty decent, so I'll click and drag that one on there. All right, so there's section AA, and then we'll just advance our scrapbook to section BB, and then drag and drop another 1/8 inch.
And just to show kind of what's going on here for someone that's used to normal viewports, if you right click on one of those viewports and go down to scenes, you can kind of peer into the scenes in your SketchUp model. So just for those that are curious, these are basically just normal viewports, but you're kind of pulling things together in the same time. Exactly.
Yeah, and you can see this one's looking for that placeholder file that's dedicated to sections. So we've got AA through ZZ. So you got a lot of options for, sectioning that model up as much as you need to. Cool. So, same process. We'll go to File, Document Setup, relink this file. And you can see when I select that link here, it highlights the viewports associated with it. So I'll choose Relink. Relink it to our Condoc New Construction. And then we'll auto-render, and those guys should drop right in. Cool. So, same deal. You're going to need to just kind of stretch this thing around a bit to find your drawing. There we go. Drag and drop that guy. And we'll do the same thing with this viewport. Drag and drop, or stretch around.
Yeah, there's a good chance to maybe show, if you go up to your scrapbooks there, how normal scrapbooks work, where you're just pulling in elements that are kind of predefined collections of line work and text, just to show that what you've got there kind of lives in that normal scrapbook list.
Yeah, definitely. So really, scrapbooks are typically used as pre-built pieces of annotation. So like a north arrow or a graphic scale. So those are available over here. You've got some pre-built ones like, I always thought TB Elegant was pretty decent. And so, you can see you've got all these guys, and then you can scoot through different section cuts and site graphics. We do have our own scrapbook that we made, so you can totally, develop your own graphic styles. And so we call ours the linear style. And so these are just like a default set of scrapbooks that for any project, we can go in here and say like, all right, here's my drawing title. So we'll just tag our drawings like that. And then we could go and, what else could we do? We can add our drawing titles over here. If you had some like window and door callouts, you could totally do that if you were doing this on a section. I know that wouldn't really be the right place. But, you just go in, and it makes it really easy to drag and drop. Maybe you throw like an area calc, or, we'll do some plans and look at the wall type keys. So just really quick and easy pre-built pieces of annotation. So really, another use of scrapbooks is as a palette. So like if I want to throw a dimension on this, well, let me like trim this up just a bit. What I would normally do is I would just like draw a rectangle around this thing, and then select both the rectangle I just drew and the viewport, and I would create a clipping mask. So you right click on it, choose Create Clipping Mask, and then I would draw a line, and my line, I would want that to be like a nice, maybe a thick 5-point ground plane here, like that. All right, so now what I want to do is add dimensions. So when I go to my dimension tool, you can see my dimensions right now look like this. They have these arrows. I prefer like the tick marks. The text properties of that are set to Verdana. It's kind of a default install there. So instead of having my my dimensions look like that, well, when I activate the tool, the layout inspectors are now showing me the default settings associated with that tool. Well, I don't want to have to go in there and like manually pick all these drop downs. All I have to do is use my my scrapbook as a palette. So this is an 1/8 inch. So I click here. You can see that this is my dimension tool. When I move over into that scrapbook, it becomes an eyedropper. So click on my 1/8 inch, and now I'm back to my default standards. So it makes it really easy for me to come in here and say like, we want a dimension, whatever it is. I can double click to continue that string. So I'll just throw a few dimensions on there. So pretty quick and easy. Once you have your base drawing set up, it's really quick and easy to annotate this thing up. And we share our linear style scrapbook and any scrapbooks we create. So this is a really good place to start to just develop your own. So just change the fonts and colors and make it your own.
All right, Mike, so what we've seen so far is pretty straightforward. We've tossed in some stuff from the scrapbooks, which are viewports linked to the SketchUp model. Let's get into some of the more complex part of the workflow that deals with stacked viewports, line weights, dynamic hatches, and take us through some of that stuff.
Cool. Yeah, so the kind of the cornerstone of the whole Condoc tools is the plan generator. And so that's what you're describing is to create a plan, we have to stack viewports in order to achieve line weights, dynamic hatches, all that stuff. Because we'll have like a hatch viewport on the bottom, and then we'll have the heavy line weight stacked on top of that, and then the light line weight on top of that. And so that way we get this, array of line weights between the section cuts and the profiles and the standard, default line weight, and then you get your hatches underneath it. So it's really that, creating all of these different scenes is what really, enables all of that. So let's look at that. Let's go through, I'm going to go back, as usual, I would go back to my design tab, and we'll go to camera perspective. And that way we can see what's going on in the model, and we're going to launch our plan generator. So when we do that, this is really kind of the project setup window. And the right time to run the plan generator is really whenever you know the answers to these questions. You could just get going and start building and designing, and then when it's time to start layering, that's when you run it. Or right from the beginning, you can say it's new construction, it's 4 levels, there's no basement, and these are all of the drawings that we want. So when you do that, what the plan generator does is it works within our template, and it's going to add our conceptual layers, or levels, like level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And also based on this question, whether it's new construction or renovation, if it were renovation, it would add an existing condition or an existing layer and a new layer. So new construction, we don't need to talk about that. So we'll click on Setup Project and watch what happens. It's going to drop in all of those section planes. If we go to our Scenes dialog, we can check that out. Let that crank right through. And then you can see we created all of these different scenes. So Construction Plan 01, light, heavy, hatch A, and hatch B. And then that, each one of these drawings needs all of these different scenes. So I actually used to do all of this manually. And you get fast at it, but really the Condoc tools just completely expedites all of it. So let's look at what one of those scenes looks like. So I go to Construction Plan 01 Light, and I'll zoom extents. So there you can see that we've got all of our doors and windows. That's pretty much it. And then we've got our Construction Plan 01 Heavy, and that's where you've got a section cut that goes through your walls. So what that does is it creates this thicker line weight here, thinner line weights for the floor and the windows. And if you were to stack these two drawings together, you would end up with the windows on top of the walls, and you've got one complete floor plan.
So just to reiterate that, when we go to layout, eventually those two scenes there will represent one or two viewports, and you'll just stack them.
Exactly. Yeah, so just like the elevation, Scrapbook was looking for elevation 01, our construction plan viewport, when we drag that in, it's actually or Scrapbook, it's a grouping of viewports. They're all stacked, they're all optimized with the vector settings. A good diagram of that is in layout. We do have this user manual we've been working on, and if I go to like our construction plan, you can see that these are the viewports in layout, and they're represented with different render settings, different layers are turned on, and you really have to, it has to be the exact naming convention, but this is essentially everything that's going on behind the scenes in Condoc is really represented in this diagram.
So this is really how you make your documents look really good and have that stylized effect, is this layering system that really gives you control over those items.
Exactly. I mean, otherwise we would just have like you'd have like your section cut, and so you'd have like 2 line weights. So we offer more like 3 or 4, which seems to be plenty to give that nice array. Yeah. And that coupled with hatches, both like the vector and the raster hatches, it, achieves that graphic standard that I think the industry is used to. So, all right, so then to further explain that, then we get into hatch A. So on hatch A, you can see that, you can check out your layers, and you can see that the only layers that are turned on are level 1 interior walls. So like our layering system, it's almost like stringing together a sentence. You say like, I want to see level 1 interior walls. And so you can see it's just the walls being chopped, and then it's the style that really is making this happen. So we have these like hatch 50 styles, and it's just all about the front color and the back color, and setting it to display shaded using all the same. So if you wanted this to be black hatch or red hatch, you could change that. But we've just set it up by default on a new construction project to hatch your interior walls, like with light gray. Then I click on hatch B, and now you can see that hatch B is this roster type fill. So when I look at my style, this is a different style. So you're now looking at your walls exterior versus your interior. So all of this stuff is completely editable. You know, we keep getting at this idea that this is a jump start, this like shotgun blasts all of your layers, styles, and scenes into the model. And then certainly you can go back in and say, well, I really would rather hatch my exterior walls a certain way, or change the style, or update the scene. So all of that is still a no problem at all. And if I zoom out a little bit, maybe I'll go back to our design tab, design, and we'll go to all on. So like, for the most part, you're not going to spend a lot of time in your condoc scenes. You know, you're not going to be digging around over there and spending a ton of time messing with those. It's more of like you run the program, you check it out, and then those scenes just kind of sit there. And really what you're concerned about is like looking at your section planes. So you can see that all these section planes got dropped at specific levels based on your answers to these questions when you're setting up the project. So like our level 1 is at 0, so it essentially just adds like, I think it's 3 feet or 42 inches, and that's where this first one gets dropped. So same thing with your reflected ceiling plan, because now for those you want to be sectioning up. Right. So it's basing it on second floor height minus 4 feet, or you know, we figured that out at some point and it just works right. But if you ever see that something isn't really jiving the way you want it to, it's really simple to fix. You can just double click on a section plane and you can, you know, move that around and edit that. So everything is very, very editable.
Yeah, it makes sense. So the tabs that you have over on the right there, they're kind of placeholders. They're saving collections of information, different attributes, and you don't have to worry about those as you're modeling. Mm-hmm. You know, everything is just kind of set there, stylized as you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's not a common task to be reworking your condoc scenes. Typically, you run it, you look at it, and then you just continue layering and modeling. You know, usually if something happens in layout where you see something that doesn't look right, that's where you'd more come back and fix a layering issue rather than like a condoc scene issue.
Yeah.
So let me save this, and cool. So we've looked at a handful of those. You know, we didn't talk about all of the different scenes, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, we're really what we want to do is really isolate that one construction plan drawing. That's kind of like the critical drawing for any set. And then everything else works in a very similar way. I mean, furniture plan, we'll do a foundation plan. Actually, let's look at a foundation plan. That one's kind of cool because that's new. So I'll just come over here, foundation plan 01 dashed. So you can see here in version 2, we added this foundation layer. So now we've got this dash style.
And for those that are wondering how you got these dashed lines in, you use Style Builder to create that specific type of line.
That is it. Yep, I created these dashed, basically, I think they're PNGs. Created those in Photoshop, and then used Style Builder to patch this whole thing together. And so now the end result is that you can get these dashed lines dynamically without like running a script in SketchUp or something like that. So you take this dashed line, and then you know, on top of that, you've got foundation plan light and foundation plan heavy and foundation plan hatch. So, you know, you stack all these viewports in layout, and then you get a nice clean foundation plan. So let's save this and hop over into layout. Now in layout, we're just going to add a new sheet, and we're going to drop in our construction plan. So I'll go over to our construction plan scrapbook, like that. Now the construction plan scrapbook, this is like the, you know, the most important scrapbook probably, because if I go back a level, it starts at level 1 by default. I can go back to basement, and then I can go back again to foundation. So if I want to add a 1/4 inch, we'll do a 1/4 inch foundation plan. We'll add a sheet and go to level 1, add a 1/4 inch plan. And so you just kind of add another sheet, go to the next one, 1/4 inch, and you can build your whole set really quickly here. So there's level 1, 2, and then 3. We'll add another page, 1/4 inch. And maybe we want to do some details, so I'll add another page and go back to level 2 because that's where the kitchen is, and I'm going to do a 1/2 inch plan detail for the kitchen. All right, so these cartoon sets, you can kind of space them around and just see, which drawings you've added. So now when I go to File, Document Setup, References, you can see that we've got some relinking to do. So I click on this. Let's start with this one. That's the foundation plan. We'll choose relink this file. And this file was saved on Dropbox and here. And then we've got, we were working on number 2 there, so we'll open that. And I always go back in here and make sure I've saved this.
Yeah, that's good.
It's just a good idea to make sure you've got it all saved and it's ready to roll. And so now back in layout, we're going to choose open on that, and then you'll see these drawings update. Now, this is common. I mean, the way that Condoc works is it sets that viewport, it does a zoom extents. So we had a rather large site, so we're not actually catching our geometry, so it doesn't look like anything's there, but really all you have to do is just scale this up and you'll find your drawing, and now this is our foundation plan. Another good tip here, let me just get our foundation plan kind of dialed in like that. All right, so when I zoom in on this, it doesn't look so hot. Now that's because I keep my paper settings at the lowest quality. So as I'm working away, I want to keep my edit quality low, my output quality high. It's one of those settings similar to like auto render where if you're not aware of how this works, you can really set yourself up for some lag time. If you're doing it right, this is like an extremely fast system. All right, so let's set this to high quality, and then this is going to re-render here. And then we should be able to see that all of this stuff comes in really sharp, and that'll give you an idea of what it's going to look like. Or when you export out, it's going to be high quality.
Okay.
So here you can see though it's it re-rendered, and we set the edit quality to high, and now it's showing up those lines the way we want them to. But typically I keep that on low, and we'll let that auto render. So it really is important to be 100% aware of what auto render means and what edit quality means, and when is the right time to flip those things back and forth.
Yes, again, this lives in the same spot as our references, so File, Document Setup.
Yep.
And you have references, and then Paper is where we're at now.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so now, all right, so that looks pretty decent. And then if I keep going through my set, we have some more relinking to do. So under File, Document Setup, okay, so now we've got our references, and you can see again, we've got relink this file. And this one is attached to our construction plan. So we've got a different file to relink for foundation. So same deal, relink, and we go to this one that we've been working on. And then we're going to go through the same task where I just need to take this and stretch it. And now I'm aware that this is happening up top. So I'll just kind of grab my plan like that, and there's one. So what we're getting at here is the hatching, the array of line weights. You can see that the light line weights, the heavy line weight, the hatch B and hatch A. So what would happen if I were to go back into SketchUp, and let's say that we make a decision to move this wall 5 feet into the garage. So I would go back into SketchUp, I'd get to my Design tab. So Design, all on.
So it's important here we're going to the Design tab and doing these changes right here, and not going to the scenes that you've set up that match those viewports.
Exactly. You don't want to, what I love about SketchUp and creating the documents there is that you think and design in 3D. So the 2D documents are just a product of that model. And so I don't want to have to go in and like think and plan so much. Like I might study my drawings or do a red line and then produce, but then we just double click into that level of the model. I like to use that View, Component, Edit, Hide Rest of Model. I even have a keyboard shortcut think you showed me that.
That's a good shortcut, yeah.
Yes. Control H is what I use, and so now, it's easy for me to get to the inside of the model. I can even use my layer states too and click on Interior. Makes it a little bit easier to work on. So I want to move this wall now. Just double click in until I can select Edges and Surfaces, make that strategic selection there, and then I'm going to use my Move tool and move this, towards the garage by 5 feet. Enter. And you know what? Maybe I'll even just line it up here. Let's just call it even, like that. Now I'm going to back out. I tap Escape, and I need to get my door. I need to put this stuff into focus too. So then I can just move my door straight across like that. And I'd want to get in and edit my concrete, my materials, but that's not really what we're concerned about here. We just want to see the lines move and the hatch move. So I'm going to save this.
Important step there. Save it so that layout knows there's a change that's been made.
Yep. Hop into layout, and then I'll go to File, Document Setup, and there you can see that my new construction model is out of date. All I do is click on Update, and then we're going to see this wall and that door jump over there. So we'll do that. It's going to automatically render, and we're good to go there. Now, what happened there is that's where our floor comes in. So I was trying to cut corners and not deal with the floor right now, but we'll just fix that real quick. So you can see it's not too hard to just make these changes. Constantly be saving and go back in here. Once that's done doing its thing, we're just going to update that reference again. And there's our line work is cleaned up. So that kind of gets back to what I was saying about the fact that you're not really going to be working in the conduct scenes. You're going to look for something that's different in layout, and then that's going to send you back to either like fix the line work that's off or relay or something like that. What else we have here? So again, like these, we're going to need to stretch this out.
Yeah, while you're doing this, I'm curious too if people are watching that may want to roll this out to a couple of team members, or they have a larger team than a small firm. How does this work for scalability and working with multiple people, maybe in the same SketchUp model and layout file?
I think that's one of the the really big benefits of just being on a system of standards, and that's what we're offering. Is with Conduct Tools, you get all of your layers. We have all of the layers, and we have a place for all of these layers. A way of doing it that everyone can say, this is the way we do it in our office. It's kind of rare, I think, to see an office with like really tight SketchUp standards. I mean, you'll see that like AIA has CAD standards. Different CAD or different drawing programs, have different standards. But SketchUp, this gives you and your entire team a way of doing it that's going to produce predictable results. So if I work on this model today and then close it and save it, somebody else works on this tomorrow, they're going to hop in, they're going to know exactly where things go, why it's behaving the way it is. And we do a lot of that. We get a lot of models and look at different layering systems, and I can only imagine that's difficult to work within someone else's own weird little tricks. And so I think that's a big value is that you're given a way of doing it, and if you just stick to the system, it works. Cool. So yeah, there's another plan, and if we just keep on rolling through here, then the last one was, I think we had like an enlarged plan, so we'll go to the next one. Now this one is going to be just a little bit bigger, like that. And so, maybe I want to crop this one down just for the kitchen. So this is my 1/2-inch plan, like that. So we'll just, throw this down, and then you would just go ahead and use your annotation tools, your label tools, and start calling things out the way that you want to mark this up. And so
this is where the auto render is nice, because as you're adjusting that viewport, it automatically re-renders any change you make to the viewport.
Exactly, yeah. If that's turned off, I mean, it's actually pretty rare that I turn that off. I mean, if you had a huge set and a huge model, really, if you're having an issue with that, you should look at like what you're putting in your SketchUp model, rather than like lean on technique rather than hardware. So I find that our files are like hardly ever over, I mean, like for a project like this, it's, well, let's check on what is it. It's, this entire set of drawings from this one model, this is like 28 megabytes. So, I see a lot of people coming up with like 500 megabyte files, and it's, you just want to be aware of what you're doing, and, lean on technique, not hardware. Let's take a quick look at dissecting one of these plans. I think this is a good level to work with. So, this, we just kind of scooted things around, but let's look at like all the different functionality buried in here. So I'm going to right click on this and ungroup. So this isn't just one viewport. This is several viewports stacked together. So you've got your light viewport. You can see that here, construction plan 02 light. And you've got your heavy viewport. This is rendering as a vector. This one's rendering as a hybrid. Then you've got hatch B, and you've got hatch A.
And again, each of these viewports reference a different scene in SketchUp.
Exactly. So that's all showing up here. You can see all these different scenes, but because we've already pre-built these scrapbooks, they all just come in for you. So we'll just undo all that, and there's that one. We can just regroup it, and that's that one clean plan. So this system, it can be done manually, and that's kind of where this all started, as I explained that in the book, the SketchUp workflow for architecture. But then when we realized, you always want to be faster and more efficient, so we started developing the plan generator and these other tools, and it's just infinitely faster to just push the button, let it create the scenes, and then drag and drop your scrapbooks.
Okay, so what we've seen so far is an example of new construction. And of course, the complexities change a little bit when you're dealing with a renovation. Mm-hmm. So how does your workflow change when you're dealing with a renovation?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's, the new construction is more simplistic just by nature. I mean, if you think about it in terms of like, if it's new, it's all new. And so you don't have to compare it to existing conditions. So like a one-level new construction project would be a very simple model to organize. Whereas like a multi-level renovation scenario is going to be even more complex. And that's what we're going to look at now. Is like, check out this is an existing conditions model. So, you can see here we went out and measured and took field notes, literally imported them into SketchUp and then scaled them. And this whole process is shown in my book, how to record field measurements, or the way that we do it at least. And so then, once you've got this in your existing conditions model, you set that on your background layer, so that's all part of the system, and you build existing conditions. Now, that's where you're going to have, this thing is layered up, so like when I select this, you can see the entity info. You've got level 1, walls, and then these are all going to be, okay, so you got exterior, and the last level of organization, you want it to be new versus existing. So there's existing exterior walls, and these are your interior walls, and then you've got another group with the layer assigned existing. What this does is allows you to switch over to the scope diagram, and that shows everything that's existing in gray. So that's the idea there. And we'll look at the proposed conditions models a little bit clearer. So if I wanted to create a demolition plan, or really just, kind of, there's no reason, I mean, unless you just know that you don't need all these plans, I usually just, rattle off everything because it's easy, right? So this one is a renovation project. It's the existing conditions model. So, when we go to renovation, now it's which one are we working in? This is a one level, and it does have a basement. And our basement, we'll just call it -10. So this is where we're going to set up all of our drawings. So these are existing conditions that, in order to create a demolition plan, we're going to have existing conditions on the bottom, and then proposed conditions that has new turned off, and basically existing to remain shows through, whereas existing demolished is going to be dashed. So we'll look at how that plays out. All right, so let's do all that. And our scenes now are all set up. So there's all of our scenes. So you've got a demolition plan. Really, the basement's very simple. So let's look at the first floor demolition plan. I can go through my scene browser. We've got demolition plan 01 existing conditions. Now what that is it's just simply the entire floor plan shown as dashed. So now what we need to do is hop into our proposed conditions model. So the way that that workflow happens is you've done all of your drafting to say this is the way that the house stands today. File, save as, and call it proposed conditions. So now that's where you go over into this proposed conditions model, and you're actually going to like delete walls. I mean, when I look at what's going on here, we trashed a bunch of walls. We basically trashed everything in the house minus some of the exterior walls. So now here you're going to need to run the plan generator again, and we're going to be a renovation scenario, proposed conditions, and this one's going to have 2 levels with a basement, and we're going to turn on all of these drawings like that. So we run it again, and now we're going to go to our demolition plan 01. Let's look at the heavy. I think that's going to be the clearest thing. So we'll go to our scenes, demolition plan 01, heavy. So you can see what's going on here is the layer that's turned off. This is everything that's existing to remain. So like our new layer is turned off. So conceptual new, we don't want to show anything new because the demolition plan is just going to show us what's going away. So it's kind of an old CAD trick. I mean, that's where it came up with this, was from 2D CAD and creating demolition plans. So I'm going to save this in my temp folder, and here's our existing conditions. I'm going to save that one as well. And now in layout, I'll just start a new document with our templates here. So we got presentation style, just go back to that same one. And so for this one, I can just go to my demolition plan. So we just bring up that demolition plan scrapbook, and we'll do a 1/4 inch, I think will fit okay on this page. And that's for level 1. So really we're just talking about level 1 right now. All right, so now, again, this is like a packaged up stack of viewports, and these viewports are linking to 2 different models. So now when I go to File, Document Setup, we are being told not just to relink the model, but we're being asked relink to proposed and relink to existing. So I'll relink this one to my desktop temp where I put these, and here's our existing. That was existing conditions. And then we're going to relink our proposed conditions as well. So we'll relink to proposed conditions. There's our auto render. So now what's left is, we can just flip this around, maybe do some, well, maybe the front porch on the bottom. I think that's how I'm used to looking at it. So now everything that is showing through as dashed is the existing to be demolished. So that's the way that plan works. And again, you know, we can go to our paper settings and maybe knock this up a bit so that it's showing through a little bit better. And so that's your demolition plan. And this is dynamic. So if I were to go back into the model and start moving some more stuff around, like let's go back to our proposed conditions, and let's go to our design all on. So let's just say that I decide that we're going to get rid of, what are we going to do here? We're just going to trash a wall. So I'll just go in here and say, let's just push this, and then just clean these guys up like that. All right, and then this new wall, we really don't need that new wall anymore, so we're going to get rid of that. And this is actually a good chance to talk about the scope diagram, because that scope diagram really comes in handy. Shows you, gray is existing, green is new. So it makes it pretty clear with one glance what's going on. So this is our proposed conditions model. I'm going to save it, hop back into layout, go to my references, and here now our proposed conditions are out of date. We'll just click on update, and we should see that this is now going to be demolished, so it'll show up as dashed. So that's kind of what's happening there. So that way, you know, we're never breaking that link between, you know, it's dangerous once you've broken the link and say, well, when I make a change, I got to remember these things. So with this system, it maintains that dynamic link there with the existing conditions being shown as dashed.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was a good demo there.
Cool.
I do have a question about if someone is using this tool, what can they expect for learning resources or perhaps support if they need it?
Yeah, for sure. We've got, you know, for the latest release here for version 2, we came up with a whole new set of, you know, you saw the models that we use, and then I went through, you know, I've been kind of moving a little bit fast on this one, but if you go to condoctools.com/support, unpacking, unzipping, installing, some frequently asked questions, and then you've got your new construction tutorials. This is really where you want to start because, you know, like I was saying, the new construction scenario is kind of the more straightforward one. And then, you know, run through all those. And then you've got the renovation scenario. So really everything that we've done in a rather quick demo setting is broken down in a much more tutorial setting here. So you can really give it a shot. Okay. So then, you know, also to get started, really the best place to go is right here at condoctools.com. And we do have a pro license, and so that's a yearly subscription for $150, and that gets you all of the tools I was showing you. Or if you click on download trial, this is going to be the perspective tool. And you've got the default template, you've got the perspective tool, and you've got the perspective tool scrapbooks. So it's just, it's a way to get started, to test the workflow and understand how it goes. The perspective tool really is the most simple one. So it's good to practice with that and understand it and then ramp up.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. That was an interesting workflow. We saw some cool stuff in SketchUp and Layout, so thanks a lot for taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah.